Well, hi, everyone. We're delighted to welcome you to How Wake Works. I'm Michelle Gillespie, for those of you who don't know me, and I am Provost, and I'm joined today by my wonderful colleague, Jackie Travisano, who is EVP and CFO. And we're delighted to be here for this, what we think is going to be a really, really wonderful program. We so appreciate your taking the time to participate, to be here today, and to be with us for this project. We wanted to point out to you that this is our first How Wake Works this year for 2024, and it also happens to be falling on February 29th. This is leap year, right? So why do we do leap years anyway? Have you been thinking about this today, why we do leap years? Well, leap years basically keep our seasons and our calendars in sync because it takes a little over 365 days for the Earth to orbit the sun. So you use leap years to catch up. So leap years let us account for that extra time. We promise you we will hold Wake Work events more often than once every 4 years, okay? But we do like the notion that the workshops are intended to keep us all in sync as one whole community. And I also kind of like the leap analogy. So How Wake Works is intended to help us all help our university leap forward, as it were, in pretty strategic and exciting and transformative ways. Now, today's workshop builds on the momentum of the initial Wake Works workshop, say that 3 times fast, that we had last year in May. We had more than 150 faculty and staff in attendance at that time. And as of this morning, we have heard from more than 195 people intending to be here. So it's nice that we have that wonderful momentum. It's wonderful to look out and see so many members of our community from many different parts of Wake Forest to be able to come together in this way. Matt Imboden and I were just talking about how important it is for us to be able to take the time to do this and come together. We think the topics that we want to talk about today are vital, they are strategic, they are to mission, and we're delighted that you're here. I don't know, when I said to Jackie, when we do this, let's just kick it off with a bang. Let's just do those big things, SIS WakeDay and space, right? Why take it easy? Why
start small?
Yes, exactly. So the fact that you are all here, that we had this kind of turnout underscores the importance of these topics today. All of you are absolutely critical to the success of the projects we've been doing and these projects as we go forward. And we want your insights, we want your feedback today and ongoing. We can't do this in isolation, we're doing this together. All of these projects impact a very big community, and it's important that we hear your voices, that you give us your thoughts. And now my partner, Jackie Travisano, will give you some more key context.
Well, just a little bit about what you will have today. You're only going to see a few presenters. We did that on purpose, but it's because of the enormous scope of both of the projects that we're discussing today means that probably many of you in this room have touched either WakeDay or space or both. So we want to extend our heartfelt thank you to the Project WakeDay team and the Campus Space Strategy Project team for your time and efforts. It's because of the work that you've put in that we're able to stand here and be so proud. After each session, we'll have a little period of Q&A. But if you don't get your question answered or you think of something later, we've set up an email address for you to ask questions. The email address is very creative. It's howwakeworks@wfu.edu. And please don't forget to stay around after we're done. We'll have some hospitality out in the hallway and get to spend more time together.
So let me introduce our first presenters today. They'll be giving you the latest and greatest update, and they do have some great updates. I just heard, hot off the press, on Project WakeDay, scheduled to launch this Monday, if you can believe it. So we'll be hearing from Mur Murchane, our Vice President for Information Technology, Matt Imboden, Chief Student Services Officers in the School of Business, and Anne Hardcastle, Associate Provost of Academic Affairs. I'll hand it over to you.
So thank you, Michelle and Jackie, and good afternoon, everybody. This is a wonderful turnout. We are so grateful to have this opportunity to provide an update on our ongoing implementation of our new student information system, WakeDay. This is a 2.5-year journey, and as Michelle said, we are fast approaching an important milestone when students, faculty, and staff will begin using this new system. So preparations didn't just begin. They started a while back, actually back in 2019, going into 2020. This is when the most knowledgeable folks across Wake Forest in admissions, in financial aid, in academic advising, course registration, student records, student financial services, really began undertaking the detailed implementation work. Early on, the provost appointed a campus-wide, university-wide steering committee. That group has been meeting for the last 2.5 years on a monthly basis, providing great oversight. The other thing I will say is that we are working with an implementation firm. This is the first time that we're doing a WakeDay student implementation. We've done the first phase of WakeDay, but student, this is the first for us. And so we have the expertise of Huron, and they bring the expertise of having done this at other places, at other top-tier colleges and universities, most recently at Brandeis, Smith College, and a number of other places. So this afternoon, Matt, Anne, and I will be speaking about the new system at a pretty high level. Just to give you the overall big picture, there will be many sessions that Matt will talk about where you can learn more information about the system. So let me start with a little bit of broad context. So for the past several years, Wake Forest has systematically been implementing a technology strategic plan. You see the 6 themes of the plan on the screen here. Our WakeDay student implementation is anchored in theme 1, which means that we have been intensely focused on the goal of improving the student experience and enhancing our overall administrative effectiveness. Also, by way of context, you may be wondering why it is that it became necessary to replace our existing system, Banner. Banner really represents the state of technology as it existed in the mid-1980s. That was actually before I went to college, so I will tell you a thing or two. So the core technology is over 40 years old. So the challenges with Banner are numerous. We could spend an entire afternoon talking about its limitations. I'll just quickly hit on a few. The lack of mobile device support, which is the way our students interact with campus systems in this day and age. The system doesn't enforce data standards, which makes it difficult for us to maintain consistent and reliable data. It takes considerable effort, and I see some of the folks in IS who are involved in this in the audience to maintain the system, doing system patches and so on. And that sort of work doesn't really add value to Wake Forest. But the bottom line is that the vendor, Ellucian, really hasn't kept up with bringing the system up to date. So our transition to a modern SIS is really part of a bigger wave that's happening across higher education as institutions begin to address sort of deferred maintenance when it comes to SIS systems. At the end of 2023, there were 38 universities and colleges across the university who had implemented WakeDay Student. This year in 2024, Wake Forest will become one of 28 that will fully deploy WakeDay Student. Over the next 3 years, the numbers are expected to grow rapidly to over 120 institutions. So with WakeDay, our students will have much easier, more intuitive experience registering for classes. They'll have the ability, for example, to map out their academic plan for their time here at Wake. Students will be able to use the new system to create what-if scenarios. So if a student decides to add a minor or change their major, they'll be able to see all the requirements in one place. The system will automatically map out what the impact of those changes might have on the student, for example, their intended graduation date. Over time, as students begin to build out their academic plans, the university will have visibility into those plans. So we'll be in a much stronger position in terms of being able to forecast the demand for classes. Student billing is another area of big improvement. My son graduated for Wake, so I've been through the student billing process. It has its challenges. Help is on the way. We'll have easier and real-time access to what is being billed. So before I turn it over to Matt and Anne, I just want to quickly thank a whole lot of people who are involved in this effort. I'll start with our executive sponsors, the provost and the EVP. Deeply, deeply grateful to Michelle and Jackie for their active involvement and support. I mentioned the steering committee for their active oversight and guidance of this implementation. The steering committee is co-chaired by Krista Collier in the chemistry department. She's a faculty member, and then Phil Handwork in institutional research. Much of the heavy day-to-day lifting, and it is a lot, is done by our project leads. And you'll see their faces on the screen here, and about 120 other people all across campus who are actively involved in this huge effort. So we're very fortunate to have Jonica Burke and Phil May. Phil is right there here to my right, your left, who are responsible for the project management office. So that's the broad context. I'm going to hand it over to Matt for more additional details. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mur. It is great to see everyone. I've been really excited about this day and the next couple days when a lot of this really hard work is going to, I think, come to some initial fruition. But as I'll share here in a moment, it's not over yet. And so this is a really important step forward in our project, but there's more steps to come as we move through the rest of the spring, and want you all to leave here really well educated about where we're at, but also where we're going. And keeping with the theme, it would be the silliest thing for me to say anything other than I'm here on behalf of a very hardworking change management team, a very creative and expert folks, Mike Ayuso, Bruce Haywood, Abby Langston, Rita Mewing, Tracy Mills-Howell, and also Sherry Dallas, who's been helping a lot. And they're actually, right now, working through a training for a small group of graduate advisors who needed it today in order to stay on pace with where we need to be for Monday. So the work continues. So before I talk a lot about some of the events and activities that are going to be available to really everyone on campus here in the coming weeks, did want to talk for a moment about where we're at, literally. You know, like, well, nobody goes to, well, maybe people do go to malls still. But you know those signs outside the department stores where you can kind of find yourself and where you're at in the bigger picture? Maybe where you can get a pretzel or some Dippin' Dots afterwards or something like that. This is the overall project timeline that Mur was referencing. What an important and really fully featured journey this has been. And we are at that little star. I'll leave the mic for a minute. We're here at number 2. So you can see what those stars represent. We're not going to dwell on this graph for very long. But you can see across the bottom is basically the types of functionality which basically represent the student journey or life cycle in a lot of ways that are basically being turned on at these important moments in time, right? And that's us at 2. You'll notice that there was a 1, even though that many people on campus are just sort of learning about the details of WorkDay now. That's okay. 1 was really some back office functionality that had to be enacted and some foundations that needed to be built so that all the hundreds of people that were just referenced could sort of make our courses and our student profiles and our degree requirements real in the system. So number 2 has been a day we've all been looking forward to for a very long time. But there is a 3 and a 4 out there, and you can just see sort of student finances still out ahead of us a bit, as well as the things you might expect to come towards the end around graduation, grading, those kinds of things. So we still have to go a little further. The other thing I would point out about this graph is you can see the basically different aspects of the project in those blue bars left to right. And I'd like to call your attention to the test, train, and deploy bar. And I just really wanted to highlight the amount of testing that has gone in to the project. I can't even begin to spout out some of the dizzying statistics Phil could about the hundreds, thousands, I mean maybe millions of pieces of data that have really been processed and all the testing that's happened. Notably, there was something called mock semester in recent weeks, which was sort of the culmination of a lot of those individual testing procedures. Where faculty, staff, and students who weren't part of the project were just invited in to test drive this thing, right? Walk through a number of very common scenarios that a student might encounter over their academic life cycle. And I can honestly say, because we love unvarnished feedback in this project, right? That's how we get better. Very positive response to that, especially from students. who were able to intuit a lot of the functionality and rules of the system, honestly faster than we even maybe expected. With a little bit of guidance. They're used to using systems like this, to be quite honest, and some of the user interface assumptions they just flowed right along with. And so that was really encouraging. So let's talk about some of the fun stuff that I think is coming up. Lots of opportunities to get engaged. This is a very high-level summary, just the next few slides that we want everybody to take note of. But regardless of what I share today, one of the major takeaways is I'd love for everyone to remember that website down along the bottom there. It might be kind of small for the people in the room, but wakeday.wfu.edu is a really fully featured website where there's like a tremendous training library, there's job aids, reference guides, as well as a pretty good set of videos, which we think will be one of the most important tools that we leverage, especially with our student users. Familiarize yourself with that. That will continue to be refreshed and evolve as we move through the rest of the project. So a really important place to go, because I think we recognize that, especially moving forward, we're a very busy campus, there's a lot going on, certainly our students are all over the place. We kind of want to have an on-demand philosophy to sort of the training and the help we provide people to move through this system, and a lot of that's going to be on the web, of course. But we also recognize that it's nice to be in the room together sometimes and work through things and have it back and forth, or try something, have someone look over your shoulder. And so we are hosting a lot of in-person opportunities. I put some of the advising readiness sessions on the calendar here. I actually see a lot of faces who were in the room for some of those things, so glad you came today. Just because 'tis the season. Our undergraduate, our divinity school students, and our graduate arts and sciences students are being advised here in the next few weeks to make their course selections for fall. There's also some faculty-specific opportunities coming up where we want to really focus on the faculty user experience of this system. Those will be available both, there's in-person opportunities as well as online options. And we record pretty much everything we do, so you can go back and watch it later if you'd like. And then transitioning to the students. We have a few sessions here towards the top which focus on both advising and registration, two very timely tasks here in March where anyone can come, faculty, staff, students. Even though you're a staff member or you're a faculty member and you don't need to register for classes at Wake Forest anytime soon, no secrets. We'd love for you to see it, provide feedback, ask questions about, so that we can all be knowledgeable about this new tool. So you can see those. Obviously some students facing demos both in auditoriums around campus so they can have that in-person experience, but also via Zoom and asynchronous options too, recorded online. There's also going to be a lot of blue and orange around campus. Those are sort of the brand colors of this Workday project, which is nice because there's not a lot of other Wake things that carry those colors. And so there's going to be, this is a banner that you'll see outside of Tribble, facing the Tribble courtyard from Benson, but also down on Manchester Plaza there'll be some signage for students. But we're also planning on staffing 7 tabling locations across campus, which are during high traffic times where we know students are going to be, where we have some real easy kind of takeaways like, what are the first 4 things you need to do in Workday? What are the 5 steps of registration? Really easy kind of pithy things that students can hopefully take as a starting point. So if you see us there, please be sure to say hello. Today we were brainstorming about cupcakes or a cake at some of those things, so you're all welcome to come and join us and be excited about this Workday change. There's also obviously social media campaigns, digital signage. We're very grateful to our colleagues in Residence Life and Housing who have invited us into those spaces where students live, and we're going to help share information there as well. And if you have access to student groups or your department, and you think you have a really good, nice opportunity for us to spend some time with you or with students that you interface with, please be in touch. There's ways to contact us on the website, and we would really love to have a conversation about that. So as I transition to Anne, I just wanted to tell a really quick story. Last night, the change management team was working with the Dean's Student Advisory Council panel. Yeah, there you go, DSAP. And we love working with these student leadership groups because the students feel like a sense as though they represent other voices, so they'll ask questions. And they're also they're accustomed and comfortable, so they will not hold back. And so at this point, because we've given quite a few registration trainings so far, we kind of gave them the full dose. Here's all the planning tools. Here's the 3 ways you could register. So hypothetically, here's some of the things the system does. Here's some of the kind of really quirky things you might need to remember if you have a very specific need. And we kind of paused and said, so in 2 weeks, if you all need to do this, and they're looking at us like, yeah, we got it. Yeah, it looks like it works. It's a nice interface. I'm glad I can do it on my phone. They said, but I will tell you what, we're still wrapping our head around the notion that we're not going to like have our courses picked out for us by somebody in a department at the major minor level. And so they put their finger on the fact that this does represent just change culturally and for our community. And so I thought that was really fitting to hand off to Anne, like apart from the system, how we can work together to help make this a success. So come on up, Anne.
So, indeed, embracing change. This implementation is obviously, as the students have already noticed, going to impact our processes and the culture around many of those processes. One of the things we're going to do in this implementation, we're going to lean a little bit more into some things we already do. We're going to implement new processes and practices, and we may discontinue some others that we don't find as relevant. I want to call out also, though, 3 core ideas that I think organize some of the major changes that we're going to see. The first of those is the idea of one Wake Forest. And that is simply the fact that WakeDay is being adopted across the institution by all the schools except the medical school. And that is going to provide a lot of structure for collaboration across the units. It's going to give us opportunities to talk together about how we want to use WakeDay and make decisions as an institution for what we want to do with the system and how we want to structure programming and curricula and other things that we're going to do together as we continue to lean into our strategic framing and the ideas that come out of that. It's also going to provide, this One Wake Forest idea is a seamless experience for faculty and students. Learning and support in one system means that we learn one set of tools, one set of interfaces, and we are able to do a wide variety of tasks that we need to do as faculty and students and staff in this system. Another idea to call out here is security roles. And as Mur noted, one of the key goals of this whole implementation is to improve our data integrity and our data security. This is also going to help with information standardization across the institution. And it helps us to be able to use our data in new ways. But that also means we're going to have to change a little bit how we enter that data and who has access to those data points. Folks will have differing access to data based on your role at the university. That's a thing we're leaning more into, right? That exists now. If you open up your WIN menu, you'll see different options depending on your role at the university of different things you can do in the system. And we're going to continue to do that. We're also paying greater attention to considerations around FERPA. That's our student privacy, data information privacy laws, and thinking really intentionally about how we do that in a 21st century system. Another idea, this one again was one that the students pulled out here, is the self-service orientation of WakeDay as a software, honestly. You may have noticed this if you use any of the HR and finance pieces, the way that it delivers a lot of agency to the very end users, and that is reflected also in the student product. Student experience, this is going to give students improved agency and transparency within the system. There's clearer and more connected information because we're moving from more than one legacy system into WakeDay as a single system. Their information is better connected and better available to look at different things at the same time within the system for our students. There are also more student-initiated processes that we're able to build into WakeDay, which is going to reduce places where we're relying on Google Forms, and heaven help us, places where we still have pieces of paper that students have to walk around to different offices and find a signature for. So I think students are very much going to like being able to initiate these processes and see how they're moving forward in WakeDay. That's part of the transparency of workflows in the system. So I'm going to end here this part of our presentation with a call to action and some key ideas in that call to action. And the first one, I think, for all of us is empathy. This is empathy for colleagues, empathy for students. This kind of a core system, this is a core institutional system. This touches most of what we do here at Wake Forest, is big, and we're going to feel the impacts in a lot of different places. As Mur noted, hundreds of people have worked over many years, and I want to shout out some respect for the people who've worked so hard to get us here and encourage empathy for those folks too. They've worked hard, and we're going to turn the system on, and it's going to do exciting things. It's also going to be a little bumpy. There may be some bumps in the road. There are going to be moments of frustration, and here again, empathy. We're all learning together. We'll figure it out over time. As a community, we're going to learn to get the most out of this system. Flexibility, that leads me to flexibility here as our processes evolve. It won't be perfect, and it doesn't work like most of our legacy systems. There are things that are genuinely different in the way it presents our processes and information. And I encourage all of you to be flexible, be open to how Workday tools will accomplish the jobs we need to get done in new ways. We'll continue to learn how these tools work, and we're going to optimize the system to meet our needs. That's going to be an ongoing process. We were in Ellucian Banner for just under 20 years, and we learned over time how to do the things we want to do in it, and it's going to be no different in Workday. We will continue to optimize. And that brings me to my final point, which is partnership in refining the system. As we learn how the tools work, as we identify places where it didn't quite go as expected, we ask you to get involved and engage and get in touch with us. We will provide ways to do that so that we can continue to evolve the system and make changes to better serve our needs at Wake Forest. This is not a one and done. We are going to be living with this system for many years to come, and Workday itself, this is a good thing. The company itself deliberately improves their system. They send out releases where they add new functionality. That's great. That gives us new tools. We are going to change our processes. We at Wake Forest will bring new academic programs into existence. We'll decide we want to do certain things, processes in a different way, and Workday will be there, and we will work together to make those things happen. So I call on all of you to partner with administrative and technical offices and with each other to identify what we need to adjust more immediately after we turn it on next week, and how we can meet longer-term goals for optimal use of our student information systems, services, and data. I want to call out, starting Monday, there will be a phone support line with a service tree that will direct you to the right folks for the kinds of questions and needs you have. And then I think that's it for our presentation. We're here to Q&A. 5-ish minutes, says Sam. And feel free to ask questions of any of the three of us.
Can you say a little bit about what's happening with pre-registration and whether that's a limitation of Workday or whether that's an intentional choice? There are some pretty obvious reasons why folks at the curricular level want to make sure that we can maximize particular kinds of resources, like particular kinds of students ahead of actual registration. And so is this a choice that this system is making in an implementation side, or is this something that the system's just not doing?
It is some of both of those. It starts with Workday in its registration function is not designed to be turned on and off. So you can't turn registration on and then turn it off and then turn it back on again the way we have to do in order to implement the current pre-registration, and that's where students are registering for major minor courses in departments. The way that works is not supported by Workday. What Workday delivers is the reserved seating system whereby you direct, exactly as you said, those resources that you would like to be available to certain populations of students. You direct those to the reserve seats to those populations, and then the students are able to register themselves based on the way that the departments and programs have allocated the resource and seats that they would like to do. Yeah.
How long will the hotline be open?
Well, we need it to be open. I'll respond to that. I think we'll keep it as long, there's no limitation. We'll keep it as long as it needs to be open.
Maybe we should just all stand up. Because remember that although this is going to be a busy system usage period for some academic units, we definitely anticipate and we've planned for, there's times in which this summer when our school professional studies colleagues will be kind of engaging the system in the way that our undergraduate departments are here in the coming weeks. And so for that reason, I think we'll see probably, the phone line is probably the very first example of a sustained ongoing system management approach, right? And where people get help like they do today with any major IT tool at the university, right? But great question about the phone line. Don't worry about that going away anytime soon. That's good. Yeah. My understanding is that's all on premises. It's all Wake Forest. Would you like to say anything about that, Mur?
No, it is Wake Forest phone system.
Yeah, and it actually, that's good. So it's not ringing at like contracted customer service lines. It actually directs to functional offices at Wake Forest who are responsible for answering those questions. So it's good training for those units who need to become system experts themselves soon. All right, that might be it for now. Maybe one more. Are we okay to take one more? Yeah.
I'll offer one comment from the
Great.
academic coordinator and faculty side. We had this problem with Banner. It's not sure how it's going to shake out because it's seen yet, but as much detail as possible for students to be able to see on their initial encounter with what courses look like. Our sense so far is that there are some limitations on that. You know, we've got dozens of sections of the X that are really all very different, but doesn't seem to be apparent to students on their first encounter on the registration side. So I just want to offer that.
That's great. No, thank you for that feedback. I think what we've seen is that what you said is likely true. Like it's very intuitive for sort of browsing the online catalog, right? You can filter it just like you're working on your Amazon cart or something like that, right? You can get through the catalog really quickly, but you're right, if you're looking at a bunch of course sections and you need to know exactly like what are the details associated with this, exactly what am I looking at versus another, we've learned that it does take a few more clicks into the course to figure that out. Plus, I would imagine that what we will honestly evolve is probably the quality of some of the text fields that have been converted over from the bulletin all at once in batch. And so those kinds of edits are things that I think we'd really like to hear about. How intuitive is the information being shared? So that's wonderful. Thank you. Absolutely. As soon as I sit down, I'm going to write down that maybe we'll expand the job aid. No, but that's good. And I just want to comment. Is it okay? Sorry.
Yeah.
I just get all excited. Like we're getting there as a community. But I think the ways in which you guys just represented the voice of your academic coordinator in your department is exactly. Because those are the folks that make a lot of these things real, right, for students and that connection point. And so I think a lot of respect has been developed for them over the course of this project. That it's not like it didn't exist in the departments, but I think rightly so, people are being seen for the contributions they make to make this work. And we need to keep listening to those voices, so I know that we will. But Anne, please, get me away from the microphone.
I was just going to add, I think Matt's point about you have to click a little deeper into the course, but the actual information about courses is much more robust than what students can see in Banner today. They're not only the public notes, which you all are mentioning, the details about the reserved seating, the details about their eligibility to get into the course, the details about the course description. So much more information. Once the students click all the way in, they can see so much about the course, and I think students are really going to come to enjoy that but it is a training moment to kind of learn to click into the system.
Yeah, we're back. Thank you so much, Mur and Anne and Matt and your teams. We're very, very grateful for the hard work, the big lifts in launching this exciting new student information system. I do think before Jackie and I talk about space, I have an ask of all of you. If you have assisted in any way on Project WakeDay, in any way whatsoever, from the tech side to the communication side to the feedback side, would you please stand right now? Hey, thank you very, very much. We realize this has been a long haul, tremendous sacrifices of time and energy and other priorities, and we're very, very grateful. And we so value and appreciate everything that you have been doing, and we'll continue with that. I love Anne's call for action, right, with our empathy and our flexibility.